So how big is your company? You might be asked. How's it going? And in answer to these types of questions, we often reply with a number related to revenue, to income, such as we are a $5 million company, a $20 million company. We grew revenue last year by $500,000, and those numbers are okay, but in terms of the health and progress of a company, they're not particularly useful. In fact, revenue is one of the worst numbers we can use when it comes to the health of our company. Gross margin, on the other hand, is much more effective when it comes to the health of the business. How to improve gross margin? Well, stay tuned and I may have some clues for you. Hey there, Ian here, and it's a pleasure to be able to be with you. I hope this is catching you happy, healthy and strong. Gross margin is the amount that we've got after we take away the direct costs and the costs of direct labour. For example, if we sell something for $100, but there was $25 in raw material and we had to pay someone $25 to make it, our gross margin is $50 or 50%. The net profit at the end of the day, of course, relates to our other fixed costs like fuel and rent and management and that kind of stuff. But gross margin is a very, very useful metric to indicate the health of our company. So how do we make more? Making a really healthy gross margin, and I mean healthy, I mean around sort of 45, 55%. That kind of healthy gross margin relies on a differentiated strategy, which sounds like a lot of big words, but really it means doing something different to everybody else. Now, even in industries that are considered highly commoditized, some companies have worked out a way to have very healthy gross margins. Take IKEA, for example, one of the poster companies for success in today's era. They exist in a highly price-focused and commoditized business, the furniture industry, and yet their gross margins are between 3 and 4 times the industry average the last time that I looked. But how is that possible? They're in the commodities, they're in a commoditized business. But their strategy relies on them being really bad at some things and being excellent at others. You have to go to an out-of-town location, get the big boxes off the shelf, get it through the checkout, get it into your car, unload it at the other end, and then build the thing yourself. That's not very convenient, but it allows them to be extremely competitive when it comes to their design and their pricing. So they've differentiated themselves in some way in their market. Another example, if you think of the construction industry. The construction industry, again, extremely price focused. And the suppliers of raw materials often face contractors that say, look, I'm going to take so much tonnage of this raw material at this price, take it or leave it. Well, you can accept that as this is the world we live in, it's price focused and we just have to get on with it. Not so good for the health and longevity of your company. This company decided to say, right, we're not going to sell direct to contractors. We'll sell to the people that sell direct to contractors. Because what they realized was, in certain conditions, when delivery of raw materials is late, there can be huge penalties to pay. And in the construction business and heavy industry, these can accrue by the hour in some cases or by the day, and they're large to ensure projects stay on track. So what these guys decided to do was to sell to the direct suppliers and say, if you are experiencing penalties, we've got you covered. We have the raw materials available to back you up. So what do you think their pricing power is? What do you think their gross margins are? Pretty healthy, because there's no negotiation. If you really need something and need it right now, the price you pay is always going to be less than the penalty cost. So they could close deals pretty much in a phone call. So that's an example of a clearly differentiated strategy. Let me give you another example from my own life. And you know that I don't make things up, but this actually happened when I was living in Hong Kong. I had come back from a trip that evening. It was it was sort of the early evening. I was pretty tired, that's my excuse. And I had got home, dumped the bags, and I was going out to pick up some buns and anything that was available, because it was the eve of Chinese New Year. Now, in Hong Kong, Chinese New Year is the biggest cultural festival, and on the eve of Chinese New Year, most families congregate for the reunion dinner. So by about 5:30, people are shuttering their doors and going home. I emerged from my apartment and I heard click, the door had closed, and my keys and every communication device available to me was inside the apartment, and I knew within a split second that I was locked out. Imagine the inconvenience, being locked out on the eve of Chinese New Year. Luckily, I had some cash in my wallet, and I was able to go to a payphone and call my friend, who called a locksmith, who came luckily on that day and was able to let me in to my apartment. How much they charged, I won't tell you, but in those circumstances they could just think of a number, and anyone is going to pay that price. Imagine that you wanted to differentiate yourself as a locksmith and be available 24/7, public holidays, weekends, no matter what, and you could be on site within 2 hours of a phone call. What do you think your pricing power could be in that sort of situation? Well, maybe that's a lot more than a standard supplier of that service. Of course, you'd have to make sure you've got the right tools. You specify which kind of locks. You have to make sure that people are available 24/7 with a phone number that's always on. So there are costs associated with that, but your pricing power becomes a lot more healthy. So pricing and gross margin is a much more effective measure of the company's health than just revenue. And if you're stuck with this, then try and follow a dollar through the company. When a customer pays you, then follow that dollar through the business in detail and see where it goes, and see how much ends up on the bottom line. There are some clues in there for how you might differentiate yourself to make sure that more money ends up on that all-important bottom line. If you're struggling with that, that's one way to do it. And remember, trying to be good at everything normally winds you up in the same category as everybody else. If you do the same as everyone else, you're likely to be priced the same as everybody else, and it's anybody's guess who gets the job, and it's normally the one who's prepared to go that little bit cheaper who ends up with the contract. So I really hope that that did make sense. Don't look at revenue. It's important, but it's not the most important. Look at your gross margin, and that really tells you how you're doing as a company. Hope that makes sense. I hope it gave you a few ideas. Take care of each other, and I'll look forward to sharing with you again soon.